Hi, how are you doing? I'm Mr. Kieckhafer, and today I'd like to talk about and demonstrate how to work on the potter's wheel. Grabbing about 1/8 of a block of clay, I highly, strongly recommend that you use clay out of a box, out of a bag, rather than recycled clay. Recycled clay might have some hard and soft areas. It won't have the same sort of consistency, so that's my first recommendation. Also, before you get started, make sure that you have enough time and that you have a board and a bag so that at the end of class, you know where you're going to put your work. I have about this much clay. It's something I can barely reach my hands around. You know, if you're new to this, you might want to think of something you can almost hide with your hands. I'm going to wedge this clay, which involves throwing the clay down repeatedly. During this process, I'm going to be making some connections to the process of making a pinch pot. When you make a pinch pot, you start with a round, air-free ball of clay. Well, I want to start with an air-free piece of clay, but I want it to be more cone-like. In fact, I'm just going to roll it back so that it comes to a nice cone-like point. And on the bottom here, it's important for it to be rounded. Ever have a snow cone, ice cream cone, this sort of shape? Or when it's like this, it's very teardrop-like. It's important that this is convex at the bottom, not caved in. We want it to first touch here, then spread out as we seat it on the potter's wheel over here. It's important that your wheel be clean, and it's important that your wheel is dry. You can turn it on and just use a wood scraper to kind of scrape it out and open up these grooves. I'm going to start pressing the clay down in the center of this wheel, and I'm looking at these rings to help me find the center of it. Using the heels of my hands, I'm pressing the clay down until it's almost completely smushed, seated, smeared onto the wheel. This is a foot pedal, but I like to use my hand. I can better control the speed of my wheel using my hand. This looks pretty centered. If it wasn't centered, I'd stop and adjust it a little bit to help get it centered from the start. Now, using just a little bit of water, I want to wet my fingertips in the bottom of this cone of clay, and I want to press in a ring about 1 inch from the bottom. At this point, I'm going to smear this clay down so that my clay will be seated and stuck on this wheel. One of the hardest things about throwing on the potter's wheel is centering your clay. I recommend that we first add a little bit of water and just rest our hands on here so that it's slippery. It's important to add water so that the clay just slips through your hands. After a while, because the wheel is spinning, the water will be flying off of this piece of clay, and the water is absorbing into here. And what was once a very wet and soft or slippery piece of clay will become kind of dry, and I can feel it becoming warm because of the friction it's pulling at my hands. That's a clear indication that I need to add more water. Maybe I'll use a piece of sponge just to apply a little bit more. Now, this is somewhat centered, but you can still see that my hands are moving. When centering your clay, it's important that you have your elbows in, wrists together. You're almost like a bulldozer. You're going to be coming at this clay like so. If I try to center the clay with my hands out here, it quickly becomes uncentered. The way you center clay is that you're going to press into it, hold yourself for a little bit, and then come back slowly. I'm going to get all tucked in, elbows in, wrists together. I'm going to, with my whole body, come in leaning, and then come back slowly from it. When centering a piece of clay, what you're really doing is you're pressing it off center for a little bit and then coming back slowly. You can see the clay lean over as I press on it. If I press on it hard and come back quickly, that's not it. You want to press at it and then come back really slowly from it, and it will stop at its own center. So technically, to center clay, you push it off center a little bit and then come back slowly from it, and it will find its own center. And you can press it down a little bit like this, and then come at it a little bit like that, and you're working different sections maybe at a time. When it starts to feel dry, you add more water. But the thing is, you're not going to continuously push, and just keep pushing. You have to gather yourself again, brace yourself again, come in and leaning for a little bit, come back slowly from it. it should look like it's spinning but not moving. I'm going to use a wood scraper here. This is called a wood rib, and it has a small hole in the center so that you can grip onto it when it's very slippery and full of clay. I think I'm ready. We were working full speed. I'm now going to reduce that speed to about half. With my hands resting on this cone of centered clay, I'm going to start pressing my thumb into the top. It's important that your clay is centered, and that's aligned up right in the middle here. Now, how far do I need to go down? Well, past halfway, but not too deep. I kind of can do a visual line up here and say when I get to that part of my finger now, that's deep enough, no deeper. Eventually, I'm going to be having my left hand in and my right hand out so that the clay is moving back away from me. This opening needs to be a little bit larger so that I can come in and develop an undercut. I'm going to press in and hook under so that I can get underneath some clay and lift up. I also want to have an undercut on the bottom outside. And I might rip some clay right off of there so that I can, with the clay turning, pinch together and start lifting some clay. I need to be able to get underneath it so that I can start to lift and move it. I'm going to reduce the speed of the clay again. Now, what I'm doing here is called working on the potter's wheel. The process of working on the potter's wheel is called throwing. I'm throwing a pot. And like a pinch pot, you know, we started with a round air-free ball of clay. We start to pinch and turn, pinch and turn. Well, this is a continuous turn. And I am going to start pinching continuously, slowly lifting up. Now the first pull, I'm not going to go very far with it. In fact, I want to stop and recompress this rim. I'm going to hold the two sides and make a top. It's like a small bridge that I'm going to compress this back down. Alright, I'm going to do another pull. My daughter Annalise is here with me. Hi Annalise. How are you doing?
I was going to school.
Are you at Vincent High School? We're working on the potter's wheel and I'm throwing a pot, Annalise. I'm going to pinch together, get underneath some clay here, and I want to start lifting up. Now, since I'm making a bowl, I want to kind of come out with my hands and then up. So I'm going to pinch, slowly coming out, moving that thick clay at the bottom towards the top. Not so much at the top here. That's already thin enough. I don't need to pinch that all that much, and I want to always check that. I just hold the top as I hold the sides, letting it spin through my fingers, making it nice and round around the top. Now I might be adding more water. I don't want a whole lot of water to collect inside here, so I'm going to kind of compress and soak up any water that might be sitting in the bottom of this bowl. I don't want that to become waterlogged and make that clay very soft. In fact, during the whole process, I'm trying to use the least amount of water as I can while still keeping the clay very slippery. So I remove water, but I'm adding it back just to make it slippery. I'm going to come down to the bottom, pinch. It's turning, I'm gripping and grabbing some clay. I'm moving very slowly up, and then less pressure towards the top. It's already kind of thin up here, and that's pretty good. Usually about 2, 3, 4 pulls is all you're going to do. If you get your clay too wet, that's problematic. If you get your clay too thin in the walls, that's problematic too. We can always trim and foot the bowl later. And once we're done with this bowl, after it's dried, we can remove it from this wheel. I'm going to try to do one more pull here, gripping some of that thick clay at the bottom and start moving it out and up in the bowl-like sort of shape. Hey, that's pretty good. Now, is it round around the top, nice and compressed here? I'm going to take a sponge and I'm going to wipe it down, starting at the center, slowly moving up the sides, smoothing it all up, drying it all down. I'm also going to come in from the bottom here, checking all that it's dry. Now at this point, what I want to do is allow the wheel to keep turning slowly. I'm going to take a fan, blow air on here so that within maybe 10 minutes we can take this and cut it off of the wheel. We'll have to flip and foot it, but that's another lesson. Until then, see you later.